More than 2 years later, I finally got around to playing Kirby in the Forgotten Land, which was released back in March 25th of 2022. And for some reason, this game eluded my mind for almost 2 years, but I truly never forgotten about it, and I'm glad I remembered it because half pun intended, it was a breath of fresh air. Now, I'm no stranger to Kirby, and I've been playing Kirby games since childhood, but this was the first time anyone has ever played a Kirby title in the 3D space, and what I have to say is, it just felt spot on. Nintendo and HAL did an amazing job bringing this pink ball of adorableness to life in a 3D environment and make it feel like I'm not playing a clone of another game. And that's an amazing thing to say, seeing how 3D adventure games have been around for nearly 30 years now. The whole time I played, I was just taken back about how much they managed to make Forgotten Land feel like Kirby, and Kirby only. It was, a very good experience, and I was puzzled as to why it took nearly 30 years for this to happen, but I'm really glad it did. If you're a fan of Kirby, I highly recommend going back to play this if you haven't already. Besides it being all the things you expect from a Kirby game, these things being fun, colorful, cheerful, and easygoing to name a few, it's also just a nice and cozy experience. For instance, we've all been conditioned for years to worry about a stage timer when we're playing Nintendo games, like Yoshi's Island or a wide variety of other Mario games, but not here, not Kirby in the Forgotten Land. And I didn't realize that fact until a few levels in, and when I did, it was great knowing I could just enjoy the game and not worry about facing a penalty for taking my time. I think that testifies how great the developers did in transitioning a franchise that was strictly 2D to 3D. And when I found an area of the game that I thought was gorgeous, I would find myself moving the camera around subtly just to take in how dazzling this game is. It genuinely has a charm of its own. Which is not surprising for a Kirby game, but I just want that to be stated. The power-ups you all know and love are here, and they work just as well as you would think they would in a 3D Kirby game. You even have the option to choose which power-up you want to use if you have a preference when going back to Waddle Dee Town, which serves as the game's hub. Here in the hub, you can fight in tournaments, listen to the game's soundtrack, and collect figures, go fishing, and more. There are even collectible figures you can collect and look at with Kirby, kind of like Smash Bros. Trophies. I mean, this game really gives you everything, and in a way, feels like a celebration for this next step of taking Kirby and moving him in a new direction. The overworld itself is also very fun to move around, and honestly also very beautiful to look at. The music for each area also changes and matches the section of the map each time you move to another part. It's been done before, yes, but it's also a nice thing to have. And if you were worried about this game being too easy because it's a Kirby game, prepare to be surprised because Kirby in the Forgotten Land can surprisingly be a bit more difficult at times. Which I'm not complaining about. It was nice to have a challenging time in some areas, and in some cases, I've been 1 to 2 hits away from being eliminated by a boss before I defeated them. I mean, this game can make you sweat. And by the end of it, I was going back to the game's hub to either get an attack boost or health boost because my fights were constantly getting down to the wire. There's also no need to worry about that if you want to play on Breeze mode, which is easier and provides more health. Though I personally played on Wild mode and noticed a good spike in difficulty 3/4 of the way through, which I greatly enjoyed, and I'm not even going to mention reaching the target times for all the game's challenges. I just want to say, not only is Kirby in the Forgotten Land an easy game to get into, but it can also be for those who enjoy Kirby and want to experience exactly how challenging a 3D Kirby game can be. By the time I made it to the final bosses, I couldn't help but notice just how much one of the fights reminded me of Elden Ring. I'm not going to show it here just to keep it spoiler free. I ended up dying several times before I could beat the boss, which put a smile on my face. Much how Breath of the Wild changed open world games or open air games, or even Zelda titles themselves, I feel like this was Kirby's version of Breath of the Wild. Because it felt good to play as Kirby and to see him free from just 4 directions. And to be immersed in the Forgotten Land never, and I mean never, got old, and it constantly reminded me of why I enjoy Kirby. If you haven't played Kirby in the Forgotten Land, I implore you, because this was truly a special game with an amazing amount of replay value after you finish the main game. This is the Average Hardcore Gamer, and as usual, play well.